Now, the word prophets, like we already said, mentioned, is in the plural, and indicates that it is not any particular prophecy, but it's a summary. It's a summary of the significance of several prophecies, such as the one that's in Psalms 22, verses 6 to 7, for example. Now, the title Nazarene refers to the branch spoken of in Isaiah 11 and 1, which in the Hebrew is netzer, the netzer. Now, the branch there, it signifies the Moshiach, or the Christ, is a twig, actually. What kind of branch? A twig that's out of the stem of Isai, or Jesse, the father of David, or David. By the time that Yahoshuwa, Iyesus, was born, the throne of David had been overthrown. The throne of David, or at least the Judean kings and the Israelites, he already had his hidden ones, his Keddus, hidden in the highlands of Ethiopia. But the throne of David that was still in existence among the Israelites had already been overthrown among the Judeans and among the so-called Sumerians, and the 10 tribes had already been overthrown from Rehoboam. What they got from Rehoboam had already been overthrown. Now, this means that the royal stem of David had been cut off. Now, a new twig sprouted from the stump of Jesse, and grew out of his roots. And there's a prophecy in the scripture where it spoke about how Israel was like a tree and will be cut down like a gutato, down to it's like become a stump, and then a brass covering will be locked over it, and it wouldn't be able to grow or whatever for a set period of time because of the disobedience of the Israel, the children of Israel. But now a new twig sprouted from the stump of Jesse and grew out of his roots. The sprouting and growing of this new twig, or this netzer, were in a situation of humiliation. And this is what Nazareth signifies. Nazareth signifies. Iyesus was not born in a recognized or a honored and therefore respected royal home, like Herod and the Herods and the other that was everybody else, like the Caesars or whatever like that. Nor did he grow up in a renowned city such as Jerusalem. He grew up in the ghetto. So people think of us from the ghetto. Something good didn't come from there. If anything, yeah, I got to come from the big city somewhere, which show you that whole Cain versus Abel vibe, that whole Urbanus versus Paganus sort of vibe that's going on and still is going on to this very day and time. Rather, he was born in a poor home. He wasn't born to like rich folk, but to poor people. He grew up in a despised town, a town that everybody looked down on. All this made him a Nazarene, a branch, not a lofty branch, not an exalted branch of a stately imperial tree, but a seemingly insignificant twig from the stump of Isai, the stump of Jesse. That's the real meaning and reference of Nazarene in that sense. Not to Nazarite, like he had a vow, or his mother, his mama, Mariam, she took a vow, or anything like that. That doesn't mean that people say, well, does that mean he didn't have dreadlocks? Listen, this is not a hierarchy. And this is one of the bad things about a lot of the Rastas and Rastaism. They think it's a hierarchy. They think that the hair, in a sense, makes the Rasta. You understand? Or you make a covenant. You can't make a covenant. Your covenant ain't no good, you understand, as a so-called Rasta Nazarite, if you're not in covenant. You see, if you're not in covenant, if you're not keeping the covenant, you can't take a vow. For example, how can we put this in an example so you can understand this example? It's like you can't vote in the election, legally speaking. You know, you can't have any part in an election if you're not a citizen. First, you got to become a citizen. You see what I'm saying? So first ones have to become a citizen of the Beit Israel. You know what I'm saying? You just can't just pull something out and say, oh, I'm taking a vow. This is not Buddhism. This is not Hinduism. This is not some other ism or schism. You know what I'm saying? That's why Rastaism must be overturned. You understand? In favor of Rastafari, because a lot of those half-ass kind of concepts and so-called icepts, you know, have crept in. And a lot of guys running around believing that, you know, and saying, oh, this Ionize a Nazarite, so forth and so on. And then they step to the wrong person, even with some of these Hebrew Israelites. And the Hebrew Israelites read them the Miranda rights, and go from the scripture. And this the so-called Rasta just talking about locks, you know, and don't know nothing. So in some sense, some of you guys are getting beat up rightly. You understand? Because you didn't come through the gate, the door. You understand? When they come to Ionize site and they try to drop that stuff there, we hit them up with it. They can't even answer the question. They have to go off and just slander and defame and revile His Majesty because some propaganda out there in the media. You understand? So these are some Project Hebrews, Project Israelites. We're not really concerned with them. Step to the east, nigga. Step to the east. Bring your version of candy store Judaism. Bring that out there to the east, you know? Bring that out there to gain the promised land with that. Let's see that. That would be very interesting to see it happen. But not to go too far off on that tangent, the main thing is that there's a difference between Nazarite and Nazarene. And we have to go to the root, get out of this lost in translation, this Englishism that basically has kept us behind. We're like children left behind, you know, because ones and ones still think that, well, the locks is a Nazarite. I mean, it does symbolize that on that level. But none of y'all, come on, how many of y'all first, be truthful, Rastas and Rastafari, how many of y'all out there first said, oh, you was reading the Bible and you saw Numbers 6 and you said, a vow of a Nazarite, and you went and you took the vow of a Nazarite? How many of you took the vow of the Nazarite? Seriously speaking. You know, I mean, we could tell the Gentiles this in our workplace or whatever like that. You know, we can say that to them because we have biblical proof and this is our faith base, and, you know, there's all that freedom of religion stuff and everything, and freedom of faith and conscience and so forth and so on. But seriously, how many of y'all went and y'all said, oh, you started growing your locks because you was under the vow of a Nazarite? And then if you say, yeah, I took the vow, who do you take it to? I took it to Jah. That's not what it says in Numbers 6. Number 6 says you have to go to a priest. You know, you have to go to a priest, you understand, for a certain amount of time, and if you violate it, you got to do such and such, so forth and so on. So are we under law in that sense, or are we under grace? See, the law is our schoolmaster, and that's why we study this. It's our schoolmaster. You understand? It's that which brings us up. This is how we gain a maturity, you understand, and a refinement by studying the entirety of scriptures. You understand, especially the law. But we're not under law in that sense, but we're under grace. You understand? So if anything, we should call ourselves what we are and say we're Nazarenes. Now, did Christ have long hair? You know, that's the next question. Did he have locks? Or are you saying that Christ didn't have locks? So you're saying the only way to have locks is to be a Nazarite. So the Mau in Africa, they're Nazarites? Come on, guys. I mean, come on, stop that. You know, I mean, this is just totally dishonest by doing that. You know what I'm saying? We are Rastafari. Rastafari. You're saying that the only Rastafari are those with locks? That therefore some of our brothers and sisters who don't have locks, they're not Rastafari? And then who gives you the right to make that call, since you even borrowed, stole, or appropriated the name Rastafari, not from yourself, but from Haile Selassie the First? So you can't be the judge of that, you understand, based on your own standards. If it's anything, let that judgment be on his standards, and His Imperial Majesty says, for my part, for his part, and we say for our part, our glory is in the Bible. So I hope this helps one understand and overstand the differences between a Nazarite and a Nazarene, and point you in the right direction. If you want to follow the Nazarite line of thought, then therefore you have to begin here and study this and find out more about that. If you now want to study the Nazarene, see, when I said at the beginning, this is something, so I said at the beginning there was some similarity between the two. Well, those despised people in that time, Nazareth, they were separated. You understand? And Christ and his family went there for that separation. You understand? So we can see a little bit of similarity there between that which is separated, like a branch separated. You know, so we can see on a metaphysical level, you understand, on a metaphysical level, on a mystical level, there's a similarity. But first, before you even get to the mystical, you first of all have to deal with the factual. You have to deal with the facts. Because true mysticism is not based on bullshit like, you know, people just making something up. You know, it's really based on what is and taking what is on a spiritual level, not making up stuff. That's fiction.